And welcome to another edition of Haunted Hotels. My name is Sam Baltrusis, and I'm an author and journalist. Joining me is my good friend, and you know him from Ghost Loop. Welcome to the show, Sean Austin. Hey, Sean.
How's it going, man? Nice to see you again.
Hey, nice to see you as well. So we just saw each other actually in Gettysburg. Did you happen to have any haunted hotel experiences while you were there?
Yeah. We had actually stayed at the 1863 Haunted Hotel, which is right adjacent, I believe, to the Jenny Wade House. And it was like a last-minute thing. And, yeah, my buddy Eric and I had some really interesting experiences there. I've seen a shadow come out of the bathroom and really intelligent responses. And at one moment, I posted on social media, like I had a vision of a boy flipping a coin, saw him wearing shorts and like a white shirt, and I was actually doing the gesture, and then right after that, through one of our ITC devices, it actually spit out and said "flipping coins," which I jumped up with excitement. I'm like, "Holy shit!" But I'm getting haunted everywhere. It's all over the place, and that's why I love it. It's a special place.
Yeah, so I actually, when I was in Gettysburg, I investigated the orphanage. Have you been able to go down into the orphanage in Gettysburg?
No, that's a place I haven't checked out yet. Nope.
So kind of give you some insight for me. So I was actually, I know this is not a hotel, but I was going down to there's like a dungeon area. And, you know, I wasn't picking up on anything until I went into, there's like a little area where the kids were supposedly kept in a sort of like a dungeon. And I was there with my good friend Richard Estep. And as I was stepping out, I had what I can only explain as like a morphing of my face. It was almost like I was channeling and the spirit took over me for a minute. I was whimpering like a child. Have you seen that before? It was like a weird phenomenon. Like someone called it overlaying.
It's actually funny you should say that, because just recently I was doing an investigation somewhere, and someone had an experience looking at a mirror, and they saw like this old witch or something like that. And like when he kind of walked over in front of me, I was looking at it, I felt like something had latched onto him, and he looked strange. And in the dark, it looked like his face actually was morphing as it was somebody else. And I think that may be the same phenomenon that you may be experiencing or talking about yourself, where all of a sudden, like, you know, you see this projection where it's actually, like you said, it's trying to channel through them, whether through projecting through their emotions or you know, psychologically, emotionally, or whatever that spirit went through, or what, you know, or if it's just something a little bit more deviant of what it's trying to oppress a person, you know, temporarily or for the long run.
Yeah, so what I was getting, so there's definitely like an entity that was holding back the children's spirits. And is that something that you see? And I think that you do, and I do this as well when I'm out in the field, where there's an entity holding back, say, women and children, spirits in the afterlife.
Yeah, it seems like it's something very prevalent in my journey, and to deal with this sort of scenario with spirits being held back, human spirits, for whatever it is. I mean, I do believe a lot of these spirits can hold them back themselves consciously and energetically because of what they went through, and they're not able to let go. But yeah, a lot of these instances that I've experienced firsthand, and obviously even that documentary, you know, we talked about before, Maleficent, was really all about that. You know, being in that circumstance of two women spirits being trapped by a demonic force, and it wanted to retaliate against me because you want to step in the way and try to, you know, take these souls away from whatever negative energies is trying to hold back any of these earthbound spirits.
So taking that idea, Sean, and applying it to hotels, I've actually have found that this sort of phenomenon is actually really common at hotels. Have you experienced that as well, where there's an entity holding back, say, women who were, say, prostitutes, or children who were, you know, died and they didn't know that they're dead, that sort of thing?
Well, yeah, yeah, definitely. You know, obviously Shanley Hotel, upstate New York. I've had quite a few experiences. I've been there many times. It's very, very interesting, fascinating place to be able to check out and investigate. It's privy to only paranormal investigations. You go there to have an experience in the paranormal, and you get to wander around the hotel, and it's got quite a few different characteristics and the layers to its history, such as, you know, like the brothel, you know, speakeasy thing, and, you know, you got the Irish mob, and you got potential suicide and deaths and things like that. So you get an assortment of different energies that come through, depending on the types of or areas of the hotel that you go into. And you know, some of these spirits have, you know, what's come home with me and have from that hotel, and some of these other hotels that you've gone to. But I've been to so many, it's just like you try to wrap your head around it. But the Shanley Hotel is a really interesting one. Some of the ladies of the night have followed me home, and I've had some experiences of waking up feeling like I'm in a brothel, and I'm like, what is going on right now? But Yeah.
I've actually have had that happen before too. I was in Orleans waterfront end, and that was also a former brothel as well. And there were the female spirits were very kind of lascivious. And is it hard between say a spirit that was an earthbound spirit or versus say like an incubus or succubus?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, the type of person they were in life, obviously, we all know, a lot of us believe that that personality, that energy, the consciousness of energy, whatever they was, is going to be what they are as a ghost if they're still earthbound. So, I mean, I would look for characteristics of, even if they're coming at you and being like sexual in some sort of manner, there'd be something else I'd be looking through. Like, for instance, like many years ago, before I was versed in demonology, I did have an experience where in my old apartment, like within the first couple of years of investigating, where I went to sleep paralysis and I couldn't move, and I felt someone grab me in your male area, if you will. And, all of a sudden I came out of this and I smelled straight up burning hair all above my bed when I woke up, and something like that. I would look for some sort of connection to the experience where like there's some sort of negative connotation, the burning hair or holding you down or something else where I look forward that could be potentially something like succubus, or hopefully definitely not an incubus for my experience. But it's funny with the Shanley Hotel, I wrote about it in my second book, The Experience, and it was actually one of those really strange experiences. One of the weirdest experiences I ever had was the ladies of the night followed me home, and I had a vision of these women, two women, dark hair. They had like brownish, like old dresses on, and there was an old record player in the back, and it was playing, and they were giggling, and I could feel them like touching me, and and I woke up, and I don't know, like there was like a strange smell in in the bed, and it was a woman's smell. I'm not going to go any further than that. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Considering the vision that I just had, I wrote about this in my book, but I did an EVP, and like literally you hear a female say, lick my, what, and to have some sort of projection of a scent and that and my vision and all what was going on, it was just like, wow. That was one of the weirdest things I've ever experienced, to be honest with you.
So it's like sexual harassment in the afterlife. I mean,
oh yeah.
I have experience of it, maybe not to that level. How do you handle that, Sean? Like, do you cross them over? Do you tell them to like stand back? And how, like, do you set boundaries with the spirits?
Well, I mean, like being a medium and having these abilities, you just have so many experiences, especially when you're sleeping, because your subconscious is fully awake, your rational mind's fully asleep, and these spirits know this during this time period. So all the places that we go to, they kind of come in and out, and they'll show themselves. And you have, I mean, obviously, like yourself, you just have these experiences once in a while, and just when you just came back from a place. You might have something that happens, but it's not like one of those things that stick around forever. It's kind of like they might linger for a little bit and then they kind of back off and they go away. But I've been woken up so many times with crazy experience. I've had some of the most profound paranormal experiences, like waking up from a vision into seeing what's in my room. And obviously I sit next to my water gun filled with holy water. And I'm just like, oh geez, I'm spraying my room down with the holy water and saying, get out of here, because I've been through so much. And it's just like, I've had the worst of the worst come at me when I'm sleeping. So, I mean, I just kind of take care of it so I can potentially try to get back to sleep. So it's just, I know the tactics of what they try to do. So, I mean, what if it's something really evil, but most of these ghosts, they just want attention, and they want to get your attention during the time that they have the best chance to know that you can hear, feel, or see them.
So I'm actually reporting from Concord's Colonial, and we have talked about this location in a previous discussion on Haunted Hotel, Sam Baltrusis. However, I came back because I have unfinished business with this room 24, and you've actually stayed here as well.
I did, yeah. I stayed in that room, and I have to say it's one of the most active rooms I've ever stayed in, for sure. Knowing the history that's behind it, it definitely brought validity to that, and I definitely felt it. And when the person I was with too that stayed with me, I mean, we had so much activity that night. I mean, it was just unbelievable. It's definitely top 5 for sure out of the rooms that I've stayed, for sure.
Now, so I have an encounter with what like a crawling soldier that's kind of like repeats itself, kind of on a ghost loop. Hate to use that phrase, but what did you pick up when you were here?
A lot of panic, like chest pains. It was hard to breathe. And there was like this crazy light anomaly that like literally just kept something coming in and out of the bathroom area.
Yep.
And we captured it on video. And there was just a lot of the references to the, you know, the hospital, the injuries of the soldiers and stuff like that. And I feel like there was just a lot of that energy circling around the room the entire night. It was just endless, you know, communication, and the devices, the EMF detectors, the millimeters and stuff were just going off. And, you know, and then there was, you know, the stick figures with using the SL. I mean, there was so much stuff going on. And you know, it's interesting because when you just stay in a small room in the hotel, you think, oh, it's just the one room. But like, you know, that has such a profound history to that room where you are right now, Sam. And just like, you know, it's fascinating. And you definitely feel that history. It's still alive in that room.
So kind of getting back to because it does seem like it's almost like a loop, like it's going through. Like, would you say it's residual in nature, or is it more intelligent based on your personal experience?
I feel like there's a combination of both going on in the room. I feel like there's some of that energy that is residual, and you're picking up, you know, like the panic feeling I was getting is like, you know, when we're coming in, these injured soldiers, or they don't know if they're going to die or live through this, and the pain that they're going through. And we know as researchers in the paranormal that it leaves a stain on the planet forever. That energy, that emotion, it stains the land, it stains the area. But, you know, depending on some of the other souls, but I mean, there was definitely intelligent stuff that was communicating with us and talking, but there's definitely a big chunk that is residual in there because of what was going on specifically in that room.
Now, like when it comes to portals, and I'm kind of dealing with that myself, with like say doors open up to the other side. Do you feel like that there may be a portal in this room?
You know, it's possible. I've my experience of going places, and obviously you walk over something, you know, if your equilibrium goes off and you can't walk straight, and that kind of strange feeling could equate to a portal. And there were references, I think, to other stuff. And other places that I've been coming through that night while we were there. And that's been another tall tale sign as well. When you have other spirits from places you've been coming through in a location that's out of nowhere. So it's definitely a possible and feasible thing for sure. But only being there one night, I'd probably have to do a little bit more investigating, you know, to return back there and get a real assessment on whether that might be the case.
Well, I've stayed here probably about 10 times in the past year. I've been here like before. I strongly suspect that there's a portal, right? Like you're talking about the bathroom. Right in front of the bathroom, there is a fireplace. Like that area, I'm getting like that area. The way that I find look for portals, I'll use like a pendulum over the air to see if it goes in a circle, and it'll kind of be like a really intense circle. I've also used dowsing rods too, and it'll spin around. So I have I've done the test, but I also think that it is like predominantly residual, but I do think other things kind of come in and out of the room too, which is terrifying knowing that I'm going to sleep here tonight.
Yeah. And like I said, you know, I mean, being sensitive like yourself, I mean, it's like, you know, when you're sleeping is when you're most vulnerable, and the spirits know that, and that's why they come to you. But that's when you can actually attain some sort of knowledge from that experience too. So, I mean, I love the fact that I can go to sleep and still learn something, you know, have a vision or some sort of projection telepathically where I pick up on like an antenna and wake up with that. Kind of figure out where it's coming from. Is it the place that I'm staying? Is it a place where I'm going in the future, or whatever it may be? And every time you go to a place, you might, even though it's the same type of haunting, you might experience a different spirit and a different scenario as a whole that might be completely different, you know, for you every time you go. So that's the thrill of it, and you know, it's fascinating.
So when it comes to like, you stayed at multiple haunted hotels, and have you ever like ever left like throughout the night? Like was it too much for you to handle when you were staying at one of these hotels?
No, I've never left any haunted hotel because it was too active. I mean, I'd say that there were some of them where I probably didn't get much sleep, where, you know, the energy feels so intense that it's, you know, it's threatening. I mean, if you're trying to relax yourself and actually get into a state of sleep, you know, and when you, especially like us, where we're sensitive to the emotions and to the energy that's in the room and to whatever spirits are coming into the room, that could affect us to the point where we're not in a relaxed state. That might be where like you're just kind of like you're just rolling and tossing and turning the entire night. And I've definitely done that in some of these places. I don't think I've ever slept a good night's sleep in the Shanley Hotel, and I've been there a bunch of times. There's just so much stuff going on there, but I've never left. No. I think there's only one haunted location where we actually left, and it wasn't a hotel. In all the years that I've been doing it, that it was just like we literally thought we were just poking something really dark and someone was going to get possessed.
Yeah. And, you know, why do we, like, so as investigators and as sensitives, like, why do we tend, like, I love haunted hotels and I keep going back, but I have like the worst night's sleep at some of the haunted hotels. Why do we do it? Like, why do we keep going back to these haunted locations?
Like we are our own piece of equipment. So it's like we come and we like to use these tools to investigate with, but we have these gifts for a reason, and to be able to unravel that and use it like a spiritual gym. You're flexing those spiritual muscles, and it's just an amazing surreal experience to go to these places. And I really do believe that on a spiritual standpoint as well, is that we get drawn to go back to specific places, and maybe that's why you go back to the Concord, because there's something, like you said earlier, that I don't know, there's something about it that I need to return. And there's been plenty of places like that I've done as well, where I just want to go back to that place. And those are the types of places that really interest me the most, and ones that stick with you and they stay with you for a while. And it's kind of like an interesting thing. You want to unravel that mystery. Why did it stay with you? Why did it stick with you for a long time? In other places, I'd leave and nothing will happen. So those are the most interesting places to me. And in all the hotel rooms I've stayed in, there's definitely some that have done that to me as well. I want to go back and stay in the room that's the morgue. I mean, have you ever stayed in that room?
Yeah, so that was my first room, the morgue. And so I stayed at the morgue. I've also stayed on the other side of Concord's Colonial Inn, which was every part of it's haunted, but it had less activity. But I had a lot of activity on the other side. That's where Henry David Thoreau, his aunties, lived on the other side. And so I've had profound experiences in the older part of the inn, and also the other side of Concord's Colonial Inn as well.
I'm sure. I mean, the whole area is historical, and you got that old cemetery right around the corner too.
Yeah, and something that I've experienced here, Sean, that I wanted to ask you about, and this is not at the same, but this actually was at another location in Concord. It was sort of like a shadow figure that was charging at me. And this is actually near North Bridge, and it was charging at me. It then dissipates into like little shards of blackness, and the shards started coming at me like paranormal darts. Have you ever experienced that before?
I've never had a manifestation like that before, but actually just recently, a year ago, I actually went to the house where David Glatzel was exorcised that was based on The Conjuring 3, and right. That shit followed me. The demonic entity from that case, and it followed me for weeks. It came back here, and speaking of sleeping, like I woke up, I had a vision with this 8-foot shadows walking down the hallway to my bedroom, and then I heard a growl, and I saw hooves and a tail and all this fucking shit like in my room, and it followed me for weeks. I had all these weird things happening, and I even ended up going to the rental property where David actually said the demon would go in and out of the well, where most people don't know is. But anyways, there was one point, this never happened to me before. I was alone at this cemetery here in Connecticut. It's called Hookman Cemetery, nice creepy urban legend to it, where I definitely believe there's a portal there too. But I was by myself. It was just getting dark, and I was live streaming, and all of a sudden I started to pick up psychically that thing, like the tail, the hooves, was with me. And I got up. I'm like, holy crap, that thing is with me. I'm going on guard because it was just getting dark. I was by myself, and I'm like, I don't know what's about to happen. And it says demon through the spirit box. And then it goes, he's ours, like something creepy, like literally. And I have this video, it's on my YouTube page, what happened. And all of a sudden, with my own eyes, I saw this black, perfect sphere, like literally dart in front of me in a circular fashion. And what it looked like to me, and I see these things with my eyes, but this was the most prominent and the most consistent and long period of time that I saw this black thing. It looked like, you see the tail of a plane, and it kind of like blinks, and you don't see the movement, but every time it blinks, it's somewhere else. That's literally what it did to me. So I saw this black like thing just do this and like appear, and then the last time it came right for me, and I'm just like, fuck, I just freaked out, and I had to say, in the name of Jesus Christ, back off. But I've seen a lot of shadows and things like that, but that was something specific where it was like so consistent and so long that I watched its movement and what it was doing and leading up to that moment where I was just like, what is about to happen? I'm by myself and this is like intense. But, I've seen, mists and things like that. But I mean, fragments, I've had visions of things like that, but I've never seen it like where I'm awake, where, fragments start to break away in pieces. But we know that these spirits can do all sorts of different strange manifestations, smoke and pieces, and I don't even know. So that's an interesting experience for sure.
Now, do you, like, from your experience with shadow people, do you think that they're interdimensional, or do you think that they're human, or do you think that they're demonic? Like, is there? I mean, I guess there's different schools of thought with that, and like I'm more in the school of potentially interdimensional, but I also have seen what I've also have worked on demonic cases myself without wanting to, and I've seen that manifest as well. So shadow people as a whole.
Well, to me, it's like I try to associate, for me personally, what I've seen psychically, and through my individual experiences and what I've read, and incorporating both of those things and melding them together. The different colors of the balls of light that I've seen, and my experience, and what they mean, and what kind of entity they might ultimately be, what they represent, energetically. And, if I see something blue, I would consider that like a protective or possibly even angelic spirit. Or, the evil stuff, it would be like a dark red or dark brown or black. And this could be an angry or evil spirit. And to me, when you see a shadow figure, I do believe that it's an association of something that is a lower vibrational frequency of the type of entity it is. It could be human. It could be demonic. I feel like it could be either or. But I think the shadow manifestation as it is, it's black, it's lower vibrational, it's a negative entity, typically. And I feel like that's how we're not really able to decipher that unless there's other manifestations that we could kind of, pay attention to see if there's something else we could see if it's, truly human or something that's not human.
I pay attention to the manifestation of the shadow entity, whether it's coming from like below or above. Like I've seen actually like half-bodied shadow figures where it's just the head and down to like the top part. And I've also seen it where it's coming from the feet up, and you can only see like their feet walking. And to me, like that's significant, the fact that it's coming from below, and that like you can see their feet. And I've also like with the figure that I saw coming up with the feet, it also had it like kind of like preceding it as well to kind of indicate to me. And the ball of light was kind of reddish in color. So that to me was a warning sign.
Right. And that's what from my experience, I would always look for that too. And especially how big it is, the size of it, and what it's capable of doing. And again, there's going to be another experience that may come with that to really associate a definitive answer on what you might be dealing with. And you can lead towards that notion according to, something that happened before or is about to happen and ends up happening. And you're sitting here. I caught this shadow figure. I can show you right here in the video. I caught during the day at Letchworth Village, and I've never caught a shadow figure during the day. And like you can see it so clear, and it appears, and then it just turns. And I'll show you right here. Let's see. You see the arm, and it kind of like.
Yeah, that's creepy, Sean.
Yeah. And that's just one of those things. I don't know what it is. Do I know that there's evil spirits there? Yeah. I mean, it's kind of strange in shape, and it's not a perfect human shape because the arm's like really skinny, but it could have been demonic. I don't know if it's trying to make it look like or hide within our imagery or stuff like that. But there's so many different shadow figures, and the characteristics to its manifestation are so different. It's like we can never really confirm it unless there's something else that happens with it. If you go into a home, and what are they experiencing? What else is happening besides the shadow figure that's coming at them? Are they getting physically attacked? Is there other, manifestations that, could be human or not? But, that's the fascinating thing that we try to unravel every day in this work, and then why we go to the places like you're back at right now.
So I also like with the shadow figure, when you showed the video of that, Sean, I was getting that it was watching you. It's not necessarily that it wants to hurt you or scratch you or whatever it would do, or possess you even. I think it just is watching you. Like what is Sean up to? Like what do you feel from like when you saw that video? What are you picking up on?
Well, in that place, I've had some really crazy dark experiences. Where like things like a chair was moved violently that was holding a door open. Like a girl I know got scratched. A growl came through a spirit box that went over like 10 radio stations. It sounded like a dinosaur. There was satanic stuff that was done in that place. So, I mean, I don't know, like picking up on like looking at it, I'm not sure. It's like I've picked up like before that there's some sort of evil, like doctor-like spirit that may have been a participant in some of the abuse of some of the poor people that may be there too and holding back some of those souls. And I've prayed for spirits in there. I remember one night I prayed for the spirits in there, and like, we left and walked outside, and you could hear furniture being thrown around inside because it was a dormitory of the hospital where these patients were staying. And we got a rock thrown at us, and when we got back to my car, something just banged on the top of the car, like. So I don't know. I mean, I really don't know what it is. I couldn't really confirm that. But, like I said, to get something like that during just a straight up day, it's just so rare, but interesting at the same time.
And we've talked about this before, but in your documentary, you also, the recurring theme, you over spirits and the entity attacks you. Do you think that perhaps that shadow figure may be there also to kind of like pay you back for crossing over spirits?
I mean, there's been spirits that have come back, at me for crossing over spirits too. I actually had a crazy experience I wrote about in my first book when I was at Sadamsville Rectory, and I had this crazy vision before I went there. My buddy Phil, who came on this trip with me, and I didn't know where the dream was associated with, but I had a dream that we were in a house, and there was these three boys. And they were coming up and pulling on my shirt, and they're like, be careful, watch out for, BEZLEBUB over and over again. And they're pulling me, watch out. And then things were levitating in the house. I was looking around the house, and then there was this black donkey with red eyes, hee-hawing, running around the house. And then there was a black peacock, squawking outside. And then like I woke up, and it was interesting. I told my buddy the next day, I'm like, I had this dream that you were in this house, and he freaked out because he's like, I had a dream that I was in this house with you too. And not until I actually went to the place, when we got to Sounds of Rectory for the first time ever, I looked around, I'm like, holy shit, this is my dream. I looked out the floor. And the entire time that demon's name was coming through, and I felt like there was kid spirits trapped there. And then obviously it's associated with child abuse and this molestation with priests. I don't know what really took place when it comes to that, but I prayed for those kids. And when I came home, like something was threatening me, saying, I'll slit your throat. You took those three boys away from me, and that's the type of stuff. It's just, again, a recurring theme of dealing with these places and praying for spirits, because we can only speculate the exact, the schematics of what's going on in the spirit world at a location, and what we're doing and interacting with them with our intent. How are we intertwining with these energies, and what ripples are we throwing out there into the universe to change these things and move these spirits around because of what we're doing with our free will. But to have shit follow you home and threaten you and get pissed off about it definitely leans towards that notion of what may have taken place. And obviously with the Malthus thing, it lived with me for 5 years, and I knew it was really pissed off.
So this location is actually really important to me as well, because this is where I stayed before I filmed the documentary that I filmed, the shock doc called The Curse of Lizzie Borden. And I shot all my sort of pre-documentary like video logs. And at the time, I kept waking up at 3:15 in the morning. Have you ever experienced that, like where you're about to work on something that's very, very dark, and then you would wake up at a specific time every night leading up to that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that times are pretty prevalent because, I wrote about my second book. I decided to go by, the Amityville house, and I went to the grave of the DeFeo family, and I was by myself one day live streaming, and, it seemed like the boy was coming through the spirit box, and he actually asked me to pray for him. And, in my opinion, and I've asked others, that I don't think that a demon would ever ask you to pray for any reason to bring you closer to God. Prayed for the kid. Kid kept on coming through. It was by the house, and I went by the house, and the kid started still coming through. And then I heard a guy's name. He said George, and then that's when it started. Whenever I did, this shit was pissed. And the first vision I had was I was in the Amityville house, and I was looking up the stairs to the second floor, and there were three shadow figures, and I was yelling out to them, if this boy John is still stuck here, I command you in the name of Jesus Christ to let him go. And then this piano picks up and gets thrown at me, and then I felt the jolt of it, and I woke up and I saw this black mist go right through my ceiling. And then I look at the time, it was 3:15 in the morning. And this is something that started to reoccur. I was having dreams about the Amityville house and waking up at 3:15, which is the alleged time of the murders. And it was going on and on and on, waking up, looking over the house, hearing thousands of flies buzzing in my ears, to having a dream looking in the garage or the boathouse and the shadow figure stand there, or a black dog in the house, and all the clocks were going off at 3:15 in the morning, and a black mist came out, and I see this black mist go through my ceiling over and over again. That was the one for me that was continuously happening for quite some time, of waking up at the same time, and whatever it made me feel like at one point, it really wanted me to feel like I was like way over my head, and it gave me this feeling like, wow, what did I just get myself involved with? It was like some really intense, dark stuff. But yeah, it's interesting when you wake up at a specific time. Is it associate with something, that's specific to your case or a place that you're at, or I don't know, but considering the time of the murders at the Amityville, I thought that was, and have it physically see something and have a dream and then look at the time over and over again. It was just, crazy.
All right, so this may be a little controversial. We may want to cut it out, but I have personally have had experiences where I have dreamt about Ed and Lorraine Warren, and I mean, you and I have talked about this before too. But like, have you experienced, like, do you feel like that they may be like consulting with you as a medium while you're on these investigations?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I put out my first book too, is that before I got involved in the paranormal, no, I'm sorry, before I ever went to the Amityville house, it was like, it was right before I decided to want to go to one of the Warrens events, and it was at the Warrens house, and I went by myself. No one was like into it. I just was starting. I was reading books. I just read their book, and I was getting involved. I want to go up there. And the night before, I had a very distinct vision, that I was in this room, and Ed Warren's like, Sean, sit down over here. And he sits down in the corner, and he's like, Sean, tell me about your life. And I'm like, what's going on? And so I start talking to him, and he's like, you know what? I'd really like to draw a painting of one of your scary stories. I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah. He's like, hold on a second. Something really weird's happening. So he gets up and goes over to this old black rotary phone. And I could see exactly what he was wearing. He was wearing khakis. He looked like a thin maroon sweater and like a collared shirt. And, I woke up. I thought it was really strange. So when I went to the event the next day, we were actually, Lorraine Warren, before she got sick, was in the living room, and she was sitting in the corner. And when I looked at her telling us the story, how she met Ed and showing us footage of some of their career, I'm like, right where she's sitting, I'm like, that looks exactly where he was sitting. And later on, going through the museum, I didn't know at the time that Ed Warren actually drew paintings of all his big cases and stuff like that. I wasn't aware of that. Yeah. And then when I spoke to, Dan and Tony, and like when I first met them back in like 2011 or whatever it was, they had said that sounds just like Ed, when he was, the way he would speak, the way he dressed, and the paintings. And then they said the kicker for me is that there used to be a black rotary phone that he used to use in the museum all the time. So all the specificities to what I was experiencing, I thought that was a true visitation from Ed. But there was something else that happened to me with Amityville, like a couple of years. Again, there was another vision I had, which now I believe which led to part of the story with the Amityville. I had a vision that I was in the car with Ed. He was in the front seat. I was in the back with Lorraine. She's wearing like a plaid skirt, looking like the 70s. And he's like, we're off to the Amityville house. I'm like, okay. So we get out of the car and we go inside. And there's that same picture that I had before years later, looking up at the stairs and being in the house. And he kind of puts his head on my shoulder and he goes, Sean, we're back in time right now. And I'm like, really? And he goes, you're a big part of all this. And I'm like, really? He's like, take a look up. And the word accolade was floating in the air. And I, at the time I kind of forgot what that word meant. And that's something that I look for too about, psychic experience. If I forgot about the definition of a word, there's no way I could have come up with a word to have a division. Yeah. And I looked up, and then the next day it's like an honorary knighthood or something like that. And down, down the line of the whole Amityville experience I had is that I think, because me going there and actually Ralph coming with me and being part of that and him giving up his mass for the kid, I believe that may have potentially truly helped that boy John DeFeo, the spirit, I think that he was trapped there, finally cross over. And I think that's why I had that vision with Ed. He was telling me that's probably what that connection was.
So tying this all back to haunted hotels, and I think that a lot of this stuff that we're talking about could happen in a hotel room. And in fact, it happened. I had the dreams at this hotel, Concord's Colonial Inn. Why would, like, let's say, a haunted hotel be sort of like a location where you would have like those dreams or have those visitations? Is it because there may be like an active portal at the location? Is it because you're in more of a relaxed state or more in a heightened state? Like, why would that happen more at a haunted hotel?
I think it's probably all of the above. I mean, you're literally, sleeping and staying and engaging in the spirit world, and the epicenter, like that room is the most haunted room in, the whole place. I mean, like as soon as you walk in there, you can feel the heaviness, your head kind of feels the pressure. And, again, because the emotional, traumatic experiences of the people that were living and some of the souls that may be intelligently still wandering around that area, for whatever the reason. I mean, you're just an open book, and these spirits will gravitate towards you because you're walking into that domain, and they want to desperately come at you, or something that you'll just naturally pick up from some of the residual energy. So, I mean, I think it's all the above type of thing where anything can kind of come to you, or you can pick up on it in the process of staying there.
So getting back to the Shanley Hotel, which I visit, maybe even visit with you someday. So is there other things going on? So I know that there's the ladies of the night there. There may be an entity holding back something. Is there like haunted artifacts, like haunted dolls, haunted objects at the location? And if so, why would a doll, like cause havoc or cause like a haunting at the Shanley?
Well, I mean, I know she's got some, Kelly, wonderful owner, really nice, sweet. She's got a bunch of dolls there and some objects. I don't know what's haunted or not, but obviously I'm sure that could add to it, bringing a place. And I do believe 100% that there is a portal at the Shanley Hotel. There's an entity that I've seen with yellow glowing eyes in other places, and I've seen it in the Shanley Hotel. It's shown me in the morgue downstairs. There used to be a morgue in the basement. I've seen it upstairs. I've had experiences there. So, you already have something that you don't even need a haunted item to come in there and bring something else in there, because if something wants to follow you in there from somewhere else, there's definitely a doorway for other energies to come through. That has definitely shown itself from all the times I've been there.
So actually, I have heard that friends who have donated haunted objects to the Shanley, because almost like the entity that's attached to the doll gets lost with the other hauntings with the end. Have you heard of this idea before, of kind of like drowning out the other entities at a hotel?
I mean, it's an interesting theory. I mean, I never actually heard that before. I mean, I guess it's kind of just a thing that someone's coming up with. That, I mean, obviously in a place with so many different energies, I'm sure that the voice of the spirit's going to get lost somewhere, and that you might get a reference through our boxes or an individual experience while a person stays there. But these spirits kind of gravitate towards certain specific people for specific reasons. So all the different walks of life that come in there, that specific spirit that might just be attached to a doll that was brought into the hotel might just go to that person. And then, it's hard to associate the experience to figure that out too, because there's so much history there, and there's different faces to that hotel. It's like, like I said, you got the corner where the brothel, the ladies of the night are, and then you have like the Irish mob and the gentlemen's quarters, and then you have the seance room where they did seances, and then you have the morgue in the basement. They have the third floor where they have more creepy dolls, and it's abandoned where a potential suicide took place. And you have all these different areas of the place that has a different characteristic to show you yourself. It's interesting because you'll go to a different part and it feels like you could almost be in a different place. But it's a feasible theory that a spirit could get lost because there's so much stuff in there. I mean, obviously, if you have one haunted doll and you bring it home, I mean, if you have no other haunted items, and then you're going to be like, okay, well, it's probably the doll. But I've been on residential cases. You go in there like, oh, something's haunted my house, and they've got like 200 antiques. I'm like, wow, this is going to be tough, because like how the hell are we going to figure out what exactly is the main item? It could be one, it could be five, it could be 10 different things that's adding to it. And so, that's just what it is. But that's what makes the Shanley Hotel interesting, is because it's literally made for paranormal investigation, and you get to kind of just experience it as a whole. You don't get stuck in your room People just wander around to the late wee hours of the night since the third floor is abandoned. You feel like you're in an abandoned house in the third floor, or you could be in one of the rooms, or you could be in those other parts, and just wander around and get a feel for all the different layers of the haunting that is in the place.
And what's great about it too is Kelly does a good. She doesn't charge way too much, so you can get a group of people to go to the Shanley for a really reasonable price and actually have a pretty profound experience, and also to investigate at one of the most haunted hotels in the country.
Yeah, 100%. And I've gone there so many times, and like every time it's something a little different. A little bbit more of the same and a little different, and it's always an enjoyable experience. It's a place that if you want to just have an initial paranormal experience, I mean, Kelly and the people that work there, they have their own tools and stuff, and just to sit there at night and kind of learn the history about the place and have an experience. It's a unique haunted hotel that there's no other place like that around us, at least that I'm aware of.
All right, Sean. So you've been all over the country, all over the globe when it comes to haunted locations. If you had an opportunity to go to the one room with a boo that you haven't been to, where would you want to go?
Probably the Stanley Hotel. I mean, that's so famous, and yeah, I mean that's definitely bucket list status right there. And I mean, I'm always hearing about the story about Stephen King when he went there to write The Shining. The story would happen to him and his wife when they left their bags in the bed and went to have dinner and came back and all their clothes were like folded and put on the hangers, and they found out that the maid, hung herself in that room that used to work there. I mean, that's just such a famous haunt and such a beautiful hotel. I mean, it's been on my list for a while. I mean, just thinking off the top of my head. I mean, that you can stay at. I mean, I know the Goldfield Hotel, it's abandoned, but that's another hotel I would love to investigate. I mean, it's very infamous for items and physical items being thrown at you, which is a very rare experience that I've had a few times. So just to top off of my head, I can think about that. The Queen Mary, I mean, I guess it's a cruise, but it is a hotel, and that's always been on my bucket list as another one. I'm probably forgetting about some other ones, but yeah, there's plenty.
And I also find it really, because I kind of follow your travels on Facebook, Sean, and I you and I kind of go to the same locations, and it's weird that like you'll be there and 2 weeks later I'm at the same location. I'm like, what's going on? It's almost like the spirits are calling us to the same locations.
Yeah.
And I'm being called out west. Do you have any locations that you would recommend, haunted hotels, in say like the Midwest or West, that people could check out?
Gosh, I got to think about that. The West that I've stayed at. See, there was the one I wanted to tell you about that was so crazy in Kentucky. And I want to look it up right now. I'm on here because we had so much activity in that room. I just couldn't freaking believe it. I'm trying to remember what it was. I think it begins with a C. And there was like an urban legend of two girls that had been killed there. And I'm telling you, the energy in that room, like physical items were moving. We had disembodied audible voices taking place. Those are the types of places I'm just like, I was not expecting things like that. I'll have to look it up and get back to you with that one. Yeah, out west, I haven't done that much investigating. Like when I was in California, I've done a few things, but I really didn't do any crazy investigating. I mean, I was just in Arizona. I was just able to do Tombstone, which was phenomenal. I love Tombstone. What a special, amazing place. And you could stay in any of those hotels in that town and experience stuff. And we were having all sorts of things go on. I'm sure have you been there before? Or?
I haven't been there before, and that's kind of why I'm like, I want to start exploring those locations. I've always wanted to go, but I haven't really had the opportunity to go, because I focus mainly on New England and New York and this whole area, and I'm looking forward to expanding out with haunted hotels. So I was kind of like, I guess, looking for recommendations for other haunted hotels to visit.
Well, going to Tombstone, you could stay in any of those hotels and they're all considered haunted. And then you have everything else that comes with it. I mean, we had I stayed in a hotel right across the street from the Birdcage. I mean, we had that for the one night, and we had so much activity going on. So, I mean, I would definitely say that's one recommendation I can think of, but I really haven't done that much like hotels. that I've stayed at, and I know there's ones that I do want to. I still want to stay at the Clown Motel, and was it Nevada?
Yeah.
All these creepy, messed up places that I can think of. Or even the Cecil Hotel. I mean, I know it's hard to get into, or some people get in there, but all these places that have amazing, creepy, unsettling stories. And hotels, again, they have so many different walks of life that come in and out of there that create so many potential hauntings and the energy that it leaves behind. And that's what makes it so interesting, like a hotel, because it's just like a haunted bar or something else where people are just constantly coming, because there's so many experiences that people have in these places that throughout the years. But yeah, it's like I got to think about that one.
Yeah, it's definitely like when it comes to hotels, and I've actually worked the overnight shift at several haunted hotels, and I find that it's because there's sheer numbers of people who come in and out of the hotel, stay at the hotel, leave a little piece of themselves behind at the location. And that includes people who may have had great like experiences at the hotel, like so they got engaged at the hotel, and also people who committed suicide. Like there's a lot of suicides that happen, a lot of murders that have happened, specifically the transient hotels that were kind of common in New England, but have been, of course, turned into posh hotels now. But yeah, there's a lot of reasons why hotels would be haunted.
Yeah, and I've even stayed at places too that like I just went on because there was people that actually left reviews saying this place is haunted. Like say for instance, like I stayed at the Farmington Inn in Farmington, Connecticut, and the first floor, the energy there, it's so creepy and so messed up. Like I don't know if that place, I think there's a building from the 1600s right next to it, and I'm thinking there might be some sort of Native American burial grounds or something. The activity I got in the rooms in that place, and it's like kind of like just like by word, people talking like, I don't know, there's something about this place, and I went in there just to find out myself, and it's just like boom, like it is like, what is going on here? There's something to it. So you just never know, and you just go find out for yourself. I just realized the name of the place in Kentucky. It's called the Campbell House.
Oh, okay, the Campbell. I have, I remember watching you talk, like on social media talking about that, and I didn't remember the hotel, but I just remember the experiences. And it seemed like it was intense.
It was insane. It was literally insane. Like it's funny because we had just that was an insane trip that we took last year. It was a year ago this September. We did 7 haunted locations, 7 days in a row, and we were driving to each one. Like it could be 5 or 10 hours from each one. We did, Willow's Weep. We went to Malvern Manor, Sally House, McKinter Villa. I don't even know. There's something I can't even remember all the places. But like on our way back, we did the Campbell House in Kentucky, and like some of the stuff that was with us from the Sally House and stuff. I mean, it was so creepy, and like we were feeling dizzy in the hotel room, and it felt like there might have been a doorway right there, and we heard audible, little girl in our room, and there's like 3 of us staying in that room. And like my buddy Eric, like he was, he there first, and he like the garbage can, he went to his car, came back, and the garbage can in the room like moved by itself and was like in another room. Like it was just weird, crazy, insane, weird stuff happening. And it just had like an urban legend, the place of like, I think there was like a double death or something, like I forget the story, but yeah, I wasn't expecting that. And but like the Concord's up there too. Just like some of those places, it's just nonstop, and you're gonna experience something.
Awesome. Well, Sean, it's been amazing chatting with you. And for people, what's next for you? I know that you've been working on documentaries. You've also you have books. You have 2 books out. Tell me, like, what's up for Sean Austin?
Well, I have another documentary coming out, hopefully by Halloween. It's a harrowing, insane story of a possessed girl that was possessed while she was pregnant. I wrote about it in my second book, and I think it's really important to get that story out. And I think it's going to terrify the living shit out of people. But now that September is coming up, in October, I'm going to be live streaming the heck out of stuff and taking trips, investigating, hopefully doing some events and book signings and stuff like that. And there'll be other projects that'll be that I was just a part of that. I guess it'll probably come out at some point next year, and hopefully some more in the process soon.
And Sean Austin, like, where do they go to find out more information? Your website?
Yeah, it'd be the best. SeanDAustin.com, SEAN, D as in David, AUSTIN.com. You can get signed books, signed DVDs of our new Maleficent documentary, shirts, the whole merchandise things that we all do. And I mailed them out in the U.S. Yeah, all my information is there if you want to email any information about the paranormal in general.
Well, thank you so much, Sean, for checking in with Haunted Hotels with Sam Baltrusis. This has been a fantastic conversation, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good, Sam. Enjoy your night tonight.
All right, thank you.
My Paranormal Network.